So, let's see. I think we've been waiting well enough so that we can kick off the presentation. To start with, thanks for everybody for joining. My name is Mikko Koskinen. I'm one of the founders of Kyrö Distillery Company, and in this presentation, I'm going to share our experience on responding to COVID-19 and how we sort of came from like almost unbearable situation into a decent one, at least for our company. Just a bit, I'll start this screen share. Yes. Okay. Well, let's kick the presentation off. I don't know how many of you know Kyrö Distillery Company. I'll use a couple of slides to explain how we came to be, and hopefully that explains a little bit on how we've been able to respond as quickly as we have. So we're an all-rye distillery based in Finland, in Kyrö. There's 5 founders, and we got the idea for an all-rye distillery in Solna in 2012 while drinking rye whiskey. And as we do everything else out of rye in Finland, we thought that somebody should do rye whiskey as well, which didn't exist as a finished product before. And we drank a little bit more, and we're confident that we should be the ones that are making the rye whiskey. And that's how we embarked on a mission. So we had a dream, and we actually dared to follow that dream. In 2013, we did the first distillation, and we found the home in an old dairy in Kyrö, and we started distillation in 2014. In 2015, a year after we started, we got a call from London saying that our gin was selected as the best gin for gin and tonic, and that sort of made it for us. We were sold out for 9 months, and having gone through that kind of unexpected event, however positive it was, it sort of helped us to respond to COVID as well. We as a company had gone through like a major, really quick transformation where we need to respond to market demand that wasn't there before. And we used a lot of those learnings on the COVID response as well. Now we're a company of 30 people. We export to 30 countries. I myself, right now, I'm in Berlin. I was supposed to move to Berlin end of March, but that didn't happen. Instead, I was doing a lot of hand sanitizer instead. But now everything is sort of slowly returning to normal, and I'm supposed to move to Berlin in August. And as sort of late developments on the company side, we built a new whiskey distillery, and I think the overall investment is roughly at 7 to 8 million euros that we've done for our whiskey production. And that's one of the reasons why we put a lot of emphasis on exports as well, because last year we produced more whiskey that was sold from Finnish monopoly. So exports are needed. We started the year with a strategy, and surprisingly, that strategy actually applies to in COVID time as well. So as a base for the strategy is the values. We base whole company on being trusting, humorous, unpretentious enjoyment, being social, and being daring. Our mission being dream and dare, exactly the same stuff that we did in 2012 in Sauna, like gathering over a drink, dreaming up and daring to follow those dreams. So that's what we want to bring to the world through our spirits. On the brand strategy, everything is under Kyrö now. You might have seen that we've given up the name of Napue on the gin side, which wasn't an easy decision to do. But overall, we want to sort of be known as Kyrö instead of known the people as the people that make Napue. And on the strategic target consumer, we go for cultural explorers and expert connoisseurs. And on the trend side, I think all of this is very relevant at the moment, maybe except destination travel, which sort of takes a little bit to sort of bounce back. But the fact that we're local, and we're now local wherever we are, which means that we're local in Iso-Kyrö, where the distillery is, we're local in Helsinki, where we have our sales office, and we're local in Berlin as well. And we try to sort of support and connect to the local communities instead of going like all over the place. We do export to 30 countries, but now the focus is more on one place at a time or two places at a time. Accessibility and convenience. We opened our web shop in Germany. We can actually sell spirits here directly to consumers, which sort of feels right and wrong at the same time, because we come from a country of state-owned monopoly. Craft is changing its meaning. It's not enough anymore to be like made locally. You actually do have to have a like unique selling point or value proposition. We see that world is going towards equality and code mixing. So you might have like really, I think Makia's collaboration with Kia's now with like Atheneum was perfect example of taking the skating culture and marrying that with traditional painting art. And I think that's exactly code mixing. Sustainability and healthification, so making sure that we are good corporate citizens as well. And those lead to the three pillars of our strategy, and that we used also as the base of our COVID response. So we started off with that strategy for the year, but then the COVID hit, and a lot of our sales come from bars and restaurants. A lot of our sales come from travel retail, and those were really, really heavily hit by COVID, and that meant that like actually majority of our sales were in peril to drop off. And as a response, we handed out layoff tickets to all of the employees and founders, and to be honest, things looked really, really grim in the beginning of March. Then in 12th of March, we did hand disinfectant kickoff. We started to see that like hand disinfectant was sort of running out from stores, and we also like we have friends in healthcare, and there were rumors of like simple things as hand disinfectant running out from hospitals or at least or healthcare systems. And we as a distillery, well, you can fight COVID with alcohol. Alcohol is what we do, so it was sort of natural for us to see what we could do to help to fight the pandemic. Unfortunately, we couldn't use the spirit that we make ourselves because we don't get to high enough alcohol percentage. And for hand disinfectants, you need to have certain certifications that normally only like super huge spirits producers do have. what we could do was mixing it, bottling it, and distributing it. So that was sort of the value that we added, and we it took us 10 days to start delivering 5-liter canisters to hospitals, and we got feedback that there were actually operations that were about to be delayed if there wasn't hand disinfectant available. But our hand disinfectant arrived in time, so those operations could take place. And we started by like opening up a sign up for corporate customers who wanted to buy hand disinfectant. And then we did prioritization to 4 categories, or actually 5 categories. First being emergency personnel, healthcare, elderly care, and stuff like that. Second one was essential workers, so municipality workers, maintenance, cleaning, all of that. And third one, companies that need hand sanitizer to operate, and then finally actually consumers. So we started from those kind of ladders, and we didn't go to wholesale at that point because we wanted to be able to serve, like we want to have the control over the product, because there was also a lot of playing with the product at the same time. So a lot of companies sort of hiked the prices. They tried to make as much money as possible from this miserable situation, which was really against our own values. So what we did was we calculated as low price as we could, and then sold the hand disinfectant in that price, and especially locally we also gave it away for like charities and NGOs. Then on 27th of April, we actually started exporting. So that's when the first shipment landed to Germany. And I think what's remarkable on the speed that we managed to do this is not necessarily like we weren't the first ones to jump on this. But what we managed to do was actually changing our production so we could actually really ramp up the volumes that we do. Right now, our weekly capacity is enough for all the Finns to disinfect their hands every week with our produce. So it actually does have an impact, and then as we sort of saw that like we serve the most important customers in Finland, healthcare, essential workers, people buying directly from us, we also bottled for exports. And the whole sort of operation on building the product, getting all the regulations right, because we didn't have really clue on how to make hand disinfectant to begin with. It's not rocket science, but there's still a lot of things that you need to take into account so that you don't get into trouble. And you have to be really careful when you produce it, because if you mess it up, like it can affect on people's health like really, really badly. There were cases where a hand disinfectant was made where there wasn't enough alcohol in it. So it didn't really kill the virus, but you would get the feeling of safety by using those hand disinfectants. And that's like both unethical to release that kind of product and really detrimental to public health. Then there's also stuff like you need to have safety instructions for blind people as well, because suddenly there's a huge amount of new products, and if you're blind, it's really hard. Like you might not have the stuff that you're used to. So so in every bottle, then there must be a like triangle to point out that it's hazardous substance inside. And sourcing the materials was a nightmare as well, because everything was running out, starting from bottles to hypermellows that we use to make it into a gel, glycerin that you use to make it moisturizing your hand instead of drying them up. And all of those were running out at the same time. And we basically had to build like sourcing team. We had to build, we had to set up like regulations and those responsibilities. And at the same time, we needed to build another production line. And all of that was done in a matter of a couple of weeks, which I think was pretty amazing, even that I'm the one who's saying it. And what that did for us was that it basically helped us to get the layoff papers out of the people's hands, but it also, or at least according to the feedback that we've been getting, is that it also worked as an inspiration and something that a lot of our customers felt that gave them hope in a dire situation, like the example that that we managed to set. And the picture is in Finnish, but we actually printed in the label that this product is the goal of this product is to serve the society and secure livelihood, not to turn in profit. And yeah, and we remind that you can also like wash your hands with soap, and it's probably more efficient that way. As I mentioned, on our strategies, we have the fact that we want to be local wherever we are. So in Helsinki, even though our production is in Iso-Kyrö, we did käsidesi kiosk or hand disinfectant kiosk in Helsinki, and that turned out to be really popular. And we did that in collaboration with a bar that was being hit really hard with COVID, and they actually got decent amount of sales, almost like if they had their terrace open by us having the hand disinfectant kiosk there. So they were quite happy. We also got some international recognition as well. So Cannes Lions wrote about us. We were featured in NBC, and I think we calculated that we got 25 million impressions, or reach of 25 million just in Finland, and then in addition to that, NBC and stuff like that. And that basically meant that even though we were hit really hard with COVID, our business wasn't affected by it. We had to work really hard and do things differently, but we managed to sort of follow the plan that we set out for this year financially. Not necessarily on the profit level, but as on a level of turnover. And what's I think really funny is the fact that our journey started with rye whiskey, and that's been sort of the direction where we're heading. Not just to make rye whiskey, but that's like one of the really important goals for our all rye distillery, to be also known for our rye whiskey. But so far we've been known from our gin, our cream liqueur in some circles, and now from hand sanitizer. It's really weird, but I think the biggest learning that you can get from that is the fact that those who adapt can thrive. So it shouldn't be the survival of the fittest, it should be the survival of the most adaptability, or the ones with most adaptability. next up, I'm going to show you a video that we did. We played in on TV and in digital channels as well. And let's see. There's that. On that note, I'm about to end. Just to wrap this up, again, greetings from Berlin. We have our office in a co-working space called Mindspace, and they just listed our German market Käsidesi or hand disinfectant to nationwide delivery, basically yesterday. So our export is actually like kicking off, and we use that also as a way to get our products out there a little bit later in the summer, when the situation is not as sort of crisis-like as it still is. But yes, on that note, on my behalf, thank you so much, and I would be really happy to take some questions. If you have any questions, feel free to write in the Q&A box, and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Yeah, there's a question on who were involved in the development of the hand desi. Myself, I've been taking care of branding from the beginning of Kyrö. So I was taking care of like kicking off the project along with Kalle Valkonen and Jani Kujala and the team in Iso Kyrö, who took care of like manufacturing and setting up the production. So myself, vertically on the design side, then we had a like consultancy company to take care of that we don't miss any of the like safety regulations or things that you need to have in the label. And we got some help from Dermosil, which is a company in like cosmetics company nearby, and they also provided some contacts to Salab in Sweden, where they helped us to do the formula right, so that it should be really good for your hands, because even though if it's time of crisis, you still really much want to be able to provide the best product possible. So those, and then of course we found partners delivering all of the necessary stuff for production. And so that's, I hope that answers the question on who were involved in the development of the hand disinfectant. In case that there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. One of the things that we're quite often asked is like, what do we do outside Finland? Because we've done a lot of things in Finland regarding the käsidesi and trying to be responsible. In Berlin, what we did was a campaign where, the people that bought hand disinfectant from us, for every bottle we actually gave money to a bar that was highlighted every week. So, and the idea was that whoever sort of uses and purchases hand disinfectant, make sure that we get back to bars as quickly as possible, and because they are fighting the infection by using hand disinfectant, and making sure that the bars are still there with the monetary help that we provided. Then what we've also been doing is handing out hand disinfectant to local bars, so that they have hand disinfectant for their customers, and all of that is really much appreciated. I would say that the situation in bars is really, really tough still. A lot of them are there's a good amount of restaurants and bars that are going to be out of business by Christmas. So for all of you who are listening, I really recommend that you go to bars and restaurants and enjoy yourself, but in a safe manner. So, for example, in Berlin, you would have to use masks almost everywhere. And that's actually something that I'm probably going to be doing even when I come back to Finland. Cool. In case that there's no other questions.
Yeah, there are some more.
There are. Oh, yes. Okay. How did we get the permission to distribute käsidesi? Yeah. So with normally our product, we need to deal with Valvira. They take care of everything that like all the spirits and all of that. With hand disinfectant, we would have to deal with Tukes, which is another organization. When you use ethanol as a base for hand disinfectant, you don't need to apply for a license, but there's regulations that you need to follow, and the fact that finding out what those regulations are and being able to follow was not that difficult. It required diligence, and it required a little bit of outside help. But luckily, there was also instructions on how to make hand disinfectant by WHO. That was sort of worldwide recommended recipe. And if you did it that way, your formula couldn't go wrong, but you could still go wrong with label and all the warnings that you need to have there. On the process side, before you start selling, there's a couple of things that you need to put in place. One is, in Finnish, it would be called käyttöturvallisuustiedote, instructions for safe use of a substance. And it's a document of, I think, 7 pages, where you basically have to list a number of things on which ingredients you're using, what's the hazard that those ingredients can cause you, and what should you do in case you somehow ingest or put hand disinfectant in your eyes in large quantities or stuff like that. And all of those need to be in a certain form, and all of those need to be expressed in the label. And then there's a number of other things that you just need to figure out, which is you need to have certain codes for air transportation and certain codes for like sea transportation. And yeah, it's one of those things where it is bureaucratic. It's also bureaucratic for a reason, because we do talk about really flammable liquid, and it's the same regulations that you need to have for like any hazardous chemical. So so it's fair, and the fact that we got on board quickly just required some outside help, and I think Kalle, who's been dealing with Valvera and took us quite a while, is already well versed into those. And then the question is about the Käsidesi project. It was a huge hit, but if there was anything that you would do differently if we would do it again. One of the problems that we had was the fact that like our web shop couldn't handle all the orders that individual people would have wanted to place us. So like if I would have known that there's need for hand disinfectant, we would have had like better processes in place, maybe outsourced shipping through our web shop. And I think the other part has more to do on like building and organizing the production and delivery, because we literally started, like when we decided that we were going to be producing hand disinfectant, like the first thing that we had to do was make floor into a space where we wanted to produce it, because there wasn't, like, it didn't fill the requirements that you need when you deal with flammable liquids. So there's a huge amount of things that you need to do that are not visible, and if you don't have the chance to visit the distillery, as in this case, like we have to do, like leading the project from distance, it's kind of hard to make sure that the whole process is in place and keeping everybody updated. So one of the things that I would do would be basically requiring like filming of the production and filming of filling the orders, filming basically everything, so that the whole project team would have shared understanding on what's happening, what are the steps that are required to take for us to be able to produce it. And on the production side, I think we overestimated the speed that we could, like we were quite fast, but we still overestimated the speed that we could like set up the production. And many of those things were sort of like unknown unknowns, such as okay, this type of cap, not this particular one, but another one, is something that you couldn't place or you couldn't put in by machine, so it had to be done by hand, which means that we needed to hire like one person whose only job was to put the cap in place, rotate it, and tighten it. And like that movement was repeated like 120,000 times. And when you have those kind of like unknowns that you become aware of, or like it's good to have more, let's say it's good to have more safety on the estimates when you're doing something that you haven't done before, and that we probably would have done differently as well. Other than that, I think yeah, most of it went okay. Maybe maybe hiring help for sourcing in the beginning as well, like being willing to invest on somebody who already has contacts and is able to secure ingredients. Because what happened with us a number of times was that we're expecting a shipment, and it turned out that it even hadn't left the factory that was producing it. And then we had delays, and we had to communicate those delays to our customers, and that's not good. So having somebody who knows how to source and secure that the ingredients are arriving in time, would have been probably really good. And with a couple of changes, we could have cut maybe a week or two. Like we could have started exports like in 4 weeks, but because of the us being unexperienced, we still lost a couple of weeks in things that would have been preventable with more experience and with more know-how. Cool. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, I'm happy to answer any questions on Twitter. I'll put my my Twitter handle in the chat. And so if in case there's something that you want to ask personally, feel free to drop a line, and I'll be happy to take questions there as well. So in case there's no other questions, I think it's adequate to end the session here. I wish you all really good week, hopefully with less surprises than in the previous couple of months. Stay safe, use the hand disinfectant, and I really recommend on using the mask as well. So Tschüssi from Berlin. Stay safe.
Thank you, Mikko.
Thank you.